Every decision you made today, from choosing what to eat, to who you trusted, to the job you accepted or rejected, was not your decision alone. There are 7 hidden patterns operating inside your mind at this very moment, called cognitive biases, and they control your thinking without you even realizing it. What is even stranger is that the smartest people fall into them the most because they're so confident that they are immune to them. At the end of this video, you'll have a mental tool to notice these 7 patterns in the moment they happen, before they turn into a decision you later regret. This is important because most of the major mistakes in our lives, financial, emotional, and professional, do not occur due to a lack of information, but rather due to the way this information is processed within the brain. But what is most surprising, and what researchers in cognitive psychology confirm, is that these biases are not a defect in your thinking. Rather, they're a direct result of the way the brain itself is designed to save energy and make quick decisions. We will get to the details of that in a moment. Imagine a person who wants to buy a used car. The seller tells him that the original price was $50,000, but he will sell it for only $30,000. The buyer immediately feels that he got a great deal, but he does not know one thing. He never checked whether the car was worth $30,000 in the first place. The first number, 50,000, crept into his mind and became a reference point against which he measures everything later, even if this number is unreal or deliberately exaggerated. If this person is smart and educated and knows theoretically, the starting number might be a marketing trick. So why fall for it though? Anchoring bias means that your brain relies excessively on the first piece of information it receives about a given topic and uses it as a starting point for every subsequent evaluation, even if that first piece of information is completely random or irrelevant. Researchers Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky conducted a famous experiment in this field, in which they asked participants to spin a wheel of fortune numbered from 1 to 100, and then asked them what percentage of African countries were in the United Nations what appeared on the wheel. Although it was completely random and completely unrelated to the question, clearly affected the participants. Estimates. Those who received a high number on the wheel estimated a higher percentage, and vice versa. Confirmation bias is your brain's natural tendency to look for information that confirms what you already believe and to ignore or downplay any information that contradicts that belief. This does not happen consciously, but rather occurs at a very early stage of information processing, before you realize that you're selecting biased in the first place. Research in cognitive psychology indicates that this pattern appears very clearly on political and social issues, where people tend to only read and share content that agrees with their current opinions, strengthening their belief that they are right more and more over time, even if no evidence changes. Actual new. Availability bias means that your brain estimates the probability of something happening based on how easy it is to remember examples of it, and not based on the true statistical probability. The late researcher in this field explained that events that are exciting, recent, or that have been covered extensively in the media become more available in memory, which causes us to overestimate the probability of them happening again. This partly explains why many people are more afraid of traveling by plane than driving by car. It gets more media coverage and stays in memory for a longer period. The loss aversion bias suggests that the psychological pain of losing a certain amount of money is much greater than the happiness of gaining the same amount. Research by Kahneman and Tversky in this area has estimated that a loss is felt as pain roughly twice as great as the pleasure of a gain of similar value. This explains why many investors hold on to losing stocks for longer than they should, because selling them means formally acknowledging the loss, while holding them allows them to postpone that painful feeling, even if the logical decision is to sell and move on to a better opportunity. The cost fallacy overwhelmed means continuing with a particular project, relationship, or decision, not because of its future value, but because of the time, money, or effort that has already been invested in it, even though this previous investment cannot be recovered in any way, regardless of the current decision. Research in this field indicates that this pattern appears even in those who fully understand it theoretically, because admitting to stopping means implicitly admitting that the previous effort was useless, a feeling that the brain tries to avoid at all costs. The halo effect means that our overall positive impression of a person or thing in one aspect irrationally influences our evaluation of other completely unrelated aspects. Researcher Edward Thorndike was one of the first to document this pattern, noting that military officers who were described by their commanders as handsome or elegant-looking also received higher ratings on traits completely unrelated to appearance, such as intelligence, leadership, or loyalty. This means that our brain tends to generalize one strong impression over an entire personality, rather than evaluating each trait separately. The Dunning-Kruger effect explains that people who are less experienced or skilled in a particular field often overestimate their competence in it, because the same lack of skill that makes them less competent also prevents them from realizing the magnitude of this deficiency. Researchers David Dunning and Justin Kruger demonstrated this phenomenon in their original study, where participants who performed less well on multiple tests showed significantly higher confidence in their abilities compared to their actual performance. Interestingly, the opposite is also true. The more experience a person has in a field, the more they perceive its complexity field, which sometimes makes him less confident on the surface despite his actually higher competence. First, before making any important decision, ask yourself, what is the number?